to the busiest time of the year here at our mountain homestead. We are hot and heavy in the midst of winter prep. We've almost got the garden completely harvested. I've got some fun recipes to share with you guys today, some harvest recipes.
It's true, we are in the midst of one of the busiest times of year, harvest season, back to school. But even in the midst of the chaos, I am feeling the Lord stirring my heart toward biblical hospitality. In today's video, I'm sharing how I'm preparing my heart and home for a new season, a season of hosting. I'm canning from our garden bounty. I am stocking the freezers and the pantry with cozy fall favorites and winter favorites, and making a space for fellowship and faith-filled connection. So join me for a day of homemaking as we talk about this. Very briefly, let me explain what's happening in this scene. I am cleaning off our wood cook stove. Summertime, I like to put a few of our canned goods here on display, but we're gonna need the stove pretty soon. It's gonna drop in temperature. I need to get ready for the first fire of the season, which means all of these beautiful goodies need to go to the pantries and cellar. I think biblical hospitality is a relatable struggle we all face. We all want to extend warmth and welcome to others, but sometimes the fear of not enough time, not enough space, not enough energy, it holds us back. So if you've ever felt this struggle, you're in the right place. Today we're going to talk about this. We're going to uncover the beautiful truth about biblical hospitality, how you can open your home with grace, not perfection, and when to open your home and when not to. I'm going to start out with speaking a word for tired moms in a busy season. I want to pause and talk directly to you. If you are in a season of constant giving, especially if you have a house full of little ones and you're homeschooling and have very little support, or maybe just doing part of those things, please hear this in love. You don't need to feel guilty for not hosting or opening your home right now. There is a time to do it and a time not to. So if you are in this stage of life, you are already practicing one of the purest forms of hospitality, serving the precious people that God has entrusted to you, nourishing them. You're feeding hungry mouths, wiping tears, teaching little hearts, and holding your family together with love and prayer. And you're probably sleep deprived. Juggling meals, you're homeschooling, you're juggling lessons and laundry, and barely finding time to breathe. The best thing you can do right now is focus on rest and caring for your home, your own home. Be hospitable first to the little ones in the family that God's given you, and to your husband. Nurture peace, warmth within your own four walls. This too, it is biblical hospitality. And if this is what God has given you, then your ministry is this. And it will most likely be your greatest life ministry. When the season shifts, and it will, there will be a time for opening your doors wider. But for now, take comfort in knowing that faithfulness at home is the foundation for all other ministry. And I say all this because I've been there. I am just barely coming out of the survival years. They do come upon me at times again, but overall, I am starting to come out of that season myself. The one filled with little ones, homeschooling chaos and babies, and long stretches of survival mode. Now that my children are getting older, more independent, and I finally caught up on, about 15 years of lost sleep, I can feel that spark returning. I'm starting to feel somewhat alive again, creative again, hospitable again. God is gently stirring my heart to re-enter the ministry of hosting. I've been studying what biblical hospitality really means and how to walk it out in this new stage of life. So here are some things I'm learning, some truths, reflections, and practices that have been on my heart as I step back into the world of gathering, welcoming, and serving others from a renewed place of peace. What is biblical hospitality? When we hear the word hospitality, we often picture Pinterest-worthy tables and spreads and a spotless home. But hospitality in the Bible is far simpler and far more meaningful. The word hospitality comes from the Greek word philoxenia, meaning love of strangers. It is not about entertaining, it's about loving. Romans 12:13 says, "Contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality." So true hospitality, it isn't optional, it is part of living out our faith, and it's how we reflect God's heart to others. But as homemakers, we have certain fears fears of not enough. And many homemakers and moms wrestle with these thoughts. My house is too small. I don't have time to host. I can't cook fancy meals. My kids make too much noise. Like I said earlier, there are seasons where our focus does need to be honed in on surviving and taking care of our family first. But eventually, as we break out of that, we can start to host again. And Christian hospitality, it isn't about what you don't have, it's about offering what you do have. Think of the boy with 5 loaves and 2 fishes, John 6. Jesus didn't need a feast. He just needed someone willing to share. When we bring our little to the Lord, He multiplies it. Hospitality is an act of faith, a quiet trust that God can use our simple offerings to bless others. Some examples of hospitality in the Bible include Abraham and Sarah. They welcomed strangers who turned out to be angels in Genesis 18. The widow of Zarephath shared her last meal with Elijah and saw God provide. 1 Kings 17. That's a really powerful one to me. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus opened their home to Jesus because He was welcome, not because everything was perfect. Luke 10:38 through 42. Each story reminds us that hospitality starts with availability, not abundance. Here are some simple Christian hospitality ideas and practical ideas for everyday life. You don't need a spotless home or a gourmet dinner to create meaningful connections, but here are a few ways to show hospitality and get things clean enough. Start small. Invite just one family over, maybe just for coffee or dessert. Number 2, use what you have. Simple meals are just as special as the fancy ones when you're entertaining. Number 3, include your kids. Let them help set the table or greet guests. It teaches a heart of service. Number 4, be present. Listen, laugh, and pray with your guests. Number 5, pray over your home and the gathering. Ask God to bless the time together. Make your home a place of peace, comfort, and for the Lord to help you be a source of encouragement. And here's a practical one. Number 6, keep a checklist. Back in my Hostess with the Mostest days, I created a checklist to make hosting super simple. I keep this checklist on our refrigerator, and nowadays my whole family pitches in to help, which makes hosting even more of a breeze than it was when I was younger. This checklist will be on my website. You can find it there, and it is how to host a casual dinner party checklist. It starts with a few days before the guests arrive, where you can create a menu plan, get an idea of what you're going to make, get the shopping done, and it moves through a couple days before guests arrive and a day before guests arrive and things to do the day the guests arrive. And it kind of spreads things out, so it makes it super, super easy. Remember, hospitality doesn't have to be impressive. It just has to be intentional. When you open your home, you open your heart. You're not just inviting people in for a meal, you're creating space for connection, comfort, and Christ's love to be experienced. Hebrews 13:2 reminds us, do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. Your home can become a mission field. It is a mission field. Your table can become an altar of grace. Every act of service, no matter how small, can become an offering of worship. As a final encouragement, it might not be the time to wait until life slows down or your home feels ready. That time is probably never going to come. There will always be dishes, crumbs, and laundry, but there can also be joy, laughter, fellowship, connection, encouragement. Biblical hospitality, it isn't about perfection. It's about presence. Offer what you have where you are right now, and let God do the multiplying. 1 Peter 4:9. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. That is definitely a verse I need to keep at the front when I'm hosting. What you're seeing in these scenes is our great sauerkraut harvest. We harvested all of our cabbage and are making sauerkraut and curtido. Curtido is one of our favorite things to do with the cabbage that we grow. If you want to know how I make our sauerkraut or how we make our sauerkraut, I will be sharing the method over on Patreon. I will put this in our homestead tier. This is one of those easy meal sides when you have guests over, especially during the winter months when salads and lettuce isn't as plentiful. It's a way to enjoy the garden and summer freshness into the winter months.
My kitchen is really noisy right now, but a month ago, one of you were really surprised and very curious as to how I make my roux. The recipe that I am doing right now, it calls for creamy chicken soup. So I just make it from scratch, and I make a roux, and I make it with maybe like chicken broth, okay? So I'm gonna make today's with milk though, because I have milk that needs to be used up. So to do this, I'm gonna make my roux. It's so simple. To do this, you need 2 pots though. What you wanna do, and here's the trick, you wanna heat up your milk and your butter and your flour all separately. So in this pan, I have the butter. I'm about to add the flour to it. And then I'm gonna toast the flour just very slightly. Not really toast. There's 2 different ways to do it. You can brown your flour. If you do that, it's gonna give your sauce a more rich, nutty flavor. But if you don't brown it, if you leave it still nice and white and creamy, the flour, not cooking it too much, it will give you a thicker, creamier roux sauce. What I like to do is I like to heat the milk up first though, because that makes it so that when I put it all together, I don't have to stand there for 30 minutes or like 15 minutes stirring and stirring over a hot stove. I'm gonna add a little bit of poultry seasoning to this. Notice I turned the heat off on this. Okay, this is pretty hot. What I've done is I have essentially cooked the flour. Okay, so this flour's been heated up, it's cooked, it's not starting to brown. The butter was actually starting to brown. And over here, the milk is about ready to boil. All right, since this is chicken soup, I did add a couple cups of chicken stock or chicken broth. And part of the reason I added this is because if I just put that hot milk straight into here, it would have made lumps right away. So I needed to water it down. You can water it down with milk. You can water it down with broth. It's actually already starting to thicken. Okay, we're gonna add the milk now. And the milk's about to boil, so it's really hot. You gotta do this fast.
I did add a teaspoon of salt to this, and when you do this, you do need to stir it and whisk the milk in quickly before it starts to get lumpy. And you want to bring this to a boil for about a minute. This can be your base for so many different dishes. You can use this as a base for chicken soup. You can add little tiny pieces of chicken and onion, celery to make it a creamy chicken soup like you buy from the can. Or you can add onions, celery, and maybe some mushrooms to make creamy mushroom soup. You can add cheese to make macaroni and cheese with this. You can use it as is on vegetables or with chicken. So versatile.
I hope you can hear me over the oven. It just won't stop. The fan, I can't stop it. It doesn't have a manual switch. Anyways, I have some shiitakes here and some oyster mushrooms, but I am not going to put these in the casserole because I want them to be seen on the top and I want them to be pretty. So I'm gonna cut them in some larger pieces. I'm also gonna cut them in some larger pieces because I don't wanna waste these on the kids. Kids think mushrooms are odious, okay? They hate them. And they just pick them off, and these beautiful mushrooms are just gonna go to waste. What I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna saute these. I'm gonna leave some of them whole because I love the way they look. There's something about the mushrooms that, I don't know, look so forest-like and enchanting, I guess. I don't know. I just think they're so cool to look at. So I'm going to leave them larger so the kids that do like them can pick them and have them on their casserole, and the kids that don't like them can pick them off. I'm also sauteing the onion. I'm sauteing it so the kids that don't like onion will never know it's there. I cut them up into little tiny pieces and saute it, and that kind of helps so the kids that hate onions have no idea. For the shiitake ones, I am slicing them up. First I have garlic here now, a whole head of garlic, just as with all my savory dishes. Can't get enough.
This recipe is probably going to be one of my top new favorite casseroles, and one of the things I like about it is it will freeze really well.
This made a much larger creamy chicken soup base than I thought it was going to make. I guess I didn't really think through how much it was going to make. Sometimes I don't always think these things through. Somebody once called me a freelance cook.
It's all right. This soup is one that will save. I can freeze it, I can use it in so many things, and I can get a head start on the holidays because I'll just take whatever's extra and freeze it for Thanksgiving. It'll work great for green bean casserole. For this recipe, I am using rice in the bottom of the pan, and I'm just using the proportions for the rice and water, cooking ratios that came with the package. That will vary depending on the rice you're using. But I've got at least a cup and a half of rice in the big casserole pan and probably about 3/4 of a cup in the small one, and so I'm just using the proportions for that. Then I laid down the chicken and then the cheese, and I'm topping it with the gravy. One of them is going to have toasted breadcrumbs on the top. The other one is going to be gluten-free. It's going to be for one of my oldest children that can't really have wheat or isn't supposed to have wheat. And I did use chicken breast that was flattened and tenderized.
It's pretty early. It's not going to be time for dinner, probably about an hour and a half. So I want to cook these slowly. I think I'm going to cook them for maybe an hour at 300 degrees.
You want to be sure to cook this until the internal temperature is 165 degrees. So I'm going to make my old breadcrumbs. I have some old stale bread here, and it's so easy to make your own toasted breadcrumbs. You just run it through the food processor and toast it in the oven. You want to wait to put the breadcrumbs and the mushrooms that are sauteed on until the last 10 minutes of cooking. As mentioned, this casserole is perfect for freezing. It's perfect as a crowd pleaser. For hosting, you could make it in advance, pop it in the freezer, or put it in the fridge a couple days in advance and just pull it out when it's time to make it. It's so pretty, I think. I think the mushrooms on top are just so lovely. Of course, children will think this looks terrifying, most likely, but they can always have the mushrooms picked off. Here's some glimpses of our harvests right now. Such an abundant, blessed time of year. I decided to try something new with the carrots this year. Normally we store them in sawdust or sand with some water and they last. They don't always stay as crisp as I would like. So this year I decided we're going to save quite a few for the first couple months or to get us through a couple months, but I want to try something new this year. A friend of mine was telling me about pickled carrots, and the thought crossed my mind that I could make my own version of pickled carrots. So I started going through recipes and I found a recipe in one of my books. It's the Ball Home Canning book. And by the way, I will be going into far greater detail on this recipe and the pickled carrots over on Patreon. I decided to try this recipe kind of based on a recipe that one of my cousins shared with me a year and a half ago. And it's a pickled Asian carrot. So I decided to try this because we like to have pickled carrots in our spring rolls. And I happened to find a recipe in one of the books that is a tested recipe that was perfect for these. It was really fun to try something new. We have purple carrots, in case you were wondering what those dark ones that look like beets are. It was one of those hard garden years. We didn't have quite enough water. We had enough water to get us by, but barely. We did run out of water at times throughout this last summer, and it would come back. It only would be gone for maybe like 30 minutes and then it would come back. But still, it did inhibit some of the produce in the garden because we weren't able to give everything quite as much as it needed for as big of a harvest as we would have needed to produce the produce to get us through the year. So this will be one of those years where we probably are only growing maybe 50% of our food. We try to do so much more than that, but this year was definitely a bit of a disappointment. My husband has been working tirelessly to prepare our cistern. Another dish that I made that is very unique was lemony eggplant caponata, and I had a recipe for it where you can it. It was so good, and it can be added to so many different dishes. It can be added to lasagna, it can be just topped over pasta or rice, you can serve it with pita bread. But for this next recipe, I'll show you how I make my baba ganoush.
I'm sure there are probably a lot of variations of baba ganoush. This is my favorite way to make it. I like to make mine with equal parts onion and eggplant. This year I grew an eggplant variety. I can't remember what it's called, but as you can see, it makes these little round, like tennis ball shaped. And I don't think I'll grow this kind again. It's not my favorite. I definitely like, what is that mildly purple eggplant? I think the flavor in it is just a lot mellower than definitely than this. This one, you really have to soak this one with salt for quite some time to get the bitterness out of this one. So that's the only reason I don't recommend these round ones. They're adorable. They're super cute. But to date, I've had trouble getting the bitterness out of these ones. We're gonna see if we can make this one work with a little bit more salt this time. I'm actually gonna soak this with 3 tablespoons of salt. Again, I've had trouble getting the bitterness out of this one. So I'm thinking more salt is what it's going to need. We're gonna soak this in 3 tablespoons of salt. I have about 4 or 5 cups here. I'm gonna soak it in 3 tablespoons of salt for about an hour. This should pull the bitterness out of it. This is already starting to sweat. It's starting to release that bitterness just in about less than a minute's time. It has been about 10 minutes and this is really discoloring. You can see there's a black liquid that is collecting on the bottom. The salt has mostly disintegrated. Like I can't really feel any more specks. So what I'm gonna do is I don't want the eggplant sitting in those bitter juices that are sweating off of it. So we're gonna put it in here so that the juices can drip off of it. And I'll probably set it in the sink, but I wanted to put it in this bowl so you could see the juices that come out of this.
Another reason I wanted to share this recipe with you is because a lot of people think they don't like eggplant, but prepared correctly, with the bitterness taken out like that I'm showing you here, it is wonderful. Not only is it wonderful, but meat is really expensive right now, and eggplant is a great, affordable meat replacement. Not necessarily for protein, but to give you more of a hearty texture to your foods. Now again, this is only if it's prepared correctly. If you don't take the bitterness out, it's horrible. Best of all, you can make large batches of this in advance.
While I wait for that eggplant to finish dripping in the sink, I wanted to show you some of the harvest things that we've got going on. I've got these black-eyed Susans. They're one of my favorite fun flower. I just love them. And the sunflowers, they are probably my top favorite flower right now. I love the sunflowers and I love that they come in so many different colors. So I found these vases at the Dollar Tree for $1, maybe $1.25. I needed small ones that had tiny tops so that the sunflowers didn't lay practically on their side in a larger mouthed container. So right here I have little black-eyed Susan, just the heads of them. I'm saving some of the heads so that I don't have to keep buying them every year. These are gonna be my seed for next year.
I did just find out that these will reseed, so if you plant these in your garden, they will probably come back again next year.
I'm gonna take you guys over this way. This is my beautiful mess right now. Look at my shoes. Actually, I didn't do this with my shoes. My kid borrowed my shoes and obviously just kicked them off when they came in the door. But this is what the place is looking like. Most of the time, a little shoe fortress by the door. Cabinet doors open. This is actually not very messy compared to normal. This is my big mess right now. This is still, again, actually not as messy as it normally gets. But it's harvest time, and that means the food, getting the food put away, and school lessons is a priority. But right in this basket here, I have some beautiful sunflowers that we're harvesting. So I'm taking my sunflower heads and I'm pulling the petals off to save them, and I'm going to use these for salves throughout the upcoming year. I'll make salves, probably start making salves in October or November, maybe December if I'm late. It smells, between the onions and that eggplant over there, the smell is just so inviting and warm and hearty, and I really wish you could smell it because it smells so good. You could smell this. Of all the food smells, I think that this might be my favorite. Takes me back to my youth when I was just learning to cook. I found this cookbook at a bookstore that we used to have in our town, which the bookstore and the health food store were my two favorite places to go shopping. I wasn't into clothes. I didn't like clothes, but I like bookstores and I like the herb stores. This is a book I found, some Moosewood cookbook. And every time I make a recipe out of this, it takes me back to my younger days when I was just learning to cook, because this is one of the first cookbooks that I ever bought and started cooking from. The kitchen's starting to get hot and noisy. I've got kids over here and they're rolling pasta right now. And I'm standing over this and it's getting warm in here. Gotta love their hot flashes.
If I'm being honest though, if there's anything I have to be standing over a hot stove over having hot flashes at the same time, it would probably be this dish. There's something about it, the sense and making it, that takes me back to the first time I made it when I was learning how to cook, and I had no idea if it was going to taste good or not, but I was excited to see what it tasted like. It always transports me back in time. Makes me feel young again. Now, traditionally, baba ganoush is baked in the oven. I like to pan fry mine. We're gonna finish it off with some lemon juice. I'm not positive there's onion in the original recipe, and I like to use some Kashmiri chili in ours. If you've never had Kashmiri chili, it's really wonderful. It's like cayenne, only much smoother, and there's just something a little different about it.
Well, I think I'll take back everything I said about that eggplant. Soaking it in the salt, more salt for the lengthy amount of time, seemed to do the trick. Might grow this again after all.
Baba ganoush is traditionally served on pita, but you can have it on toast. We like it on toast. I think tonight we might try having it on pasta though. Thank you so much for watching to the end. I hope this video has been a blessing to you, and we will see you next time.